This is episode 505 on the 8th of April 2022. Wrestle-mania 38 covered or called the most stupendous two-night event. Well, we can discuss that for eternity. Was it really that stupendous as the advertisements said? Well, let's look at some of the results of this particular tournament. And let's start with the title and championship matches.
It's a toss.
So it was a winner-take-all unification match. Brock Lesnar, the WWE World Champion, versus Roman Reigns, the WWE Universal Champion. And despite it being called as the greatest and the biggest Wrestle-mania match ever, I think the fuse blew even before the match began because of all the pre-match promotions and mind games being played. It was obvious that Roman Reigns was always going to take both the championships, and despite efforts by Brock Lesnar to have any say in the match, any control in the match, once again Roman Reigns did what he has done over the past 24 months to take control of a match using his low blow technique as well as the referee knockout situation to win the match. Whether it's legal or illegal, it's irrelevant as long as the referee does not see such infractions, it doesn't matter. So Roman Reigns becomes a double champion or the WWE World and Universal Champion, which means what for the future as far as this championship is concerned, which means he might have to represent both the brands, but how will the WWE management play this out remains to be seen, which leaves not too much room for potential rivals, because if you have to look at how he has gone through his rivals. He has defeated Edge, he defeated Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson, he defeated Lesnar at the Wrestle-mania and other pay-per-views. He's defeated John Cena. All the individuals who once defeated him in that period between 2012 and 2019, he has got one above them in that period between August 2020 and March 2022. So it will be interesting to see what kind of rivals are presented to him. But as far as this match was concerned, F5s didn't work, Suplexity didn't work. All it needed was one low blow and a couple of Superman punches to have him take control of this particular match. And that was how this match was presented. So was it the greatest match ever? We never know. Next year we might have two potential rivals and they may call that the greatest match ever. They've always done it. It was Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan once upon a time. It was Cena, Rock for 2 years in a row, and then other potential champions. Of course, this was just to get the audience, but was it the greatest match? Well, that is dependent on how you look at what defines the greatest match. Moving on to the women's championship, another rivalry which went back and forth has been going on since August 2021, and the mind games being played, but those mind games become irrelevant once the contenders and the champion come on the squared circle and square up. All the pre-match mind games and all the trash talk that happens becomes irrelevant. And what becomes relevant is how the two take on each other. And then to make up for what happened, okay, 6 to 8 months ago, Bel Air went on to defeat Becky Lynch and won the Raw Women's Championship. Now, does it leave room open for potential rivals? Well, there are enough rivals in the women's division in this particular promotion, and it will be a very interesting story as to how this carries on. Moving on to the other women's championship match, it didn't get that kind of attention. It did get that kind of attention, but once again, Ronda Rousey in the same realm as Brock Lesnar, now becoming a semi-regular to the various brands. But Ronda Rousey, despite being a good mixed martial arts fighter and UFC fighter, what led her down in this match was the lack of experience and how to use the situation to one's advantage. It will be a learning experience for her, but Charlotte Flair, who has been in this business for the past 10 years, used all those things which may seem unfair in other fighting championships and went on to retain her championship. All the pre-match gossips and everything doesn't come to a head if you don't make it into a potential match. Of course, it was an interesting match, but Ronda Rousey lost on the basis of lack of experience on how to use the situation to your advantage, how to make sure that when the referee's back is turned, you make sure that your opponent is felt, even if it's an illegal method. But that's the way this particular part of the combat wrestling world works. As far as the tag team championship is concerned, it was a fatal four-way, and it was always going to be a question of whichever team didn't win, they were disbanded. And exactly what happened. So when Banks and Naomi went on to win their match, the other teams were almost on the verge of being disbanded, and that is exactly what happened. Because in tag team, unless you know each other well, unless you're like the Hard Foundation or the Hardy Boys or the Usos, where you are related by blood and other means, your only way to become a tag team champion is to do it via something common, but not beyond the fact that if you lose, the championship reign is more than over. And it was always going to happen. Whichever team lost, the two teams who were not part of the winning part, they were always going to disband, and that is exactly what happened. And it's nothing new. It has always happened. Teams are often find themselves in situations where though they have something in common, they will eventually disband if they don't go on to win the championship, unless you are the Hart Foundation, the Hardy Boys, the Usos, or something similar. As far as the men's championship is concerned, well, another situation where it was an inconsistent kind of championship winning and losing streak, where RK Bro went on to retain their men's Raw Tag Team Championships, but it's not over. You don't expect the other team to sit by idly and wait for their chances. You might see these teams go up again. And how long will these particular stables last? Well, RK Bro has lasted because of that emotional mentor-mentee relationship between Randy Orton and Riddle. But how long will that go on? As long as they retain their title, it will go on. Street Profits, they have a different chemistry to the tag team. So do Alpha Academy. But how long will these particular stables last? Well, that depends on how much are they in the mood to win the respective tag team championship, or are they looking for forward to winning singles title? It all depends on such situations. Let's look at the non-title matches. The non-title matches were even more interesting as to the matches and the bookings which were done. The first one was between Rey and Dominic Mysterio versus The Miz and Logan Paul. And The Miz and Logan Paul team reminded me of last year when Bad Bunny and a typical crossover event where popular individuals with some training in combat sports make it to this event and they shine on that stage, but they are not regular wrestlers. And that's what happened this year. And it worked to a T, because once again, Rey and Dominic Mysterio, they had the experience. But what Miz and Logan Paul had was the strategy and the things to go on to win the match. It was always going to happen after last year's situation where Bad Bunny surprised everyone with his wrestling skills. Logan Paul did the same this year, and next year you never know, you may see Rey Mysterio get someone from the other side of the world, where he may get someone who is a popular individual with some training in this particular sport, and it could be a surprise. So it's almost like a domino event, but that remains to be seen. One doesn't know what will happen next year, but it was an interesting match. It became a question of emotions versus brawn, and in this particular match, the brawn had the upper hand. Another interesting one was between Drew McIntyre, who is now being kept away from championship attention. So is Happy Corbin, and why do we have a name like Happy Corbin? Once upon a time, this particular individual had lost all his money. Then the storyline goes as he goes on to win a fortune at the casino. He has a typical story of rags to riches. He teams up with Madcap Moss, who always entertains him with a joke. But Drew McIntyre was always going to have an upper hand, because sometimes emotions also have a hand in such matches, and that's how things happen. Which means you might see Drew McIntyre getting back into the championship contention. It won't be long before he challenges the WWE World and Universal Champion at this point, Roman Reigns, for a match. It will not be far away from that situation, because he's been in too many non-title combat matches. It's time for this individual and the management to give him another go at the championship matches. Maybe he's learned from the past matches, and you never know, he might surprise. But Roman Reigns is Roman Reigns, and he has found a way to keep his championship intact. So it will be a very interesting matchup if this eventually happens. Another one which I did find a little strange, was the one where Kevin Owens called out Steve Austin. He went on to disparage Steve Austin, insulted him in the pre-match promotions. And when Steve Austin did come, Kevin Owens challenged him to a no-holds-barred match. And Steve Austin, despite all the age factor coming into play, did impress. And no-hold-barred means you can compete anywhere into the crowd, onto the ramp, and it worked for him. It worked. Here also emotions came into play because of the whole native situation, and Steve Austin, using his skills, gave Kevin Owens a stunner, a move Owens uses often, and then the beer came out, which is not surprising. So this one was another match which could have gone either way, but Steve Austin had his day, had his night in fact, and he defeated Kevin Owens in a no holds barred match. But the way this match was programmed, it was almost as if why call out Steve Austin? Why get a semi-retired wrestler? Because there's always this emotion that I want one last match. Maybe my last match didn't end in the way I planned it to. So it was all about making sure that he went out on a high, because the last time Steve Austin was in the ring 19 years ago, it wasn't the kind of exit he wanted. So to make up for that, why did it take 19 years is something we can all think on. But there is no logic to such things. If it took 19 years for him to have a go at his last match, it took him 19 years. There's nothing one can do about it. Another interesting one was being called a generation versus generation match. Two individuals who were part of different stables, different wrestling promotions, and they had been part of this business for over a decade, but they never came face to face. And then Edge, looking for a rival because he also wants to get back into the championship contention, was looking for a rival who could challenge him till no end. And it wasn't surprising that AJ Styles, as per the promotion, stood up, challenged him, but once again, Braun won over emotions. And well, one can keep saying that AJ Styles was distracted by the arrival of a certain Damian Priest, Edge's partnership with Damian Priest, and a sudden change of attitude, because for a wrestler, his opening music, his entrance music makes all the difference. If the entrance music is full of vigor, it means the wrestler is also in that mood. But this is a typical baby face turning heel. Yeah. The heel turn was exactly what was needed in this situation. How long will Edge go on to compete? Because he's also nearing 50. But that depends, because he also made an emotional return 2 years ago. So the question of whether he wants to continue for a while is left to a particular wrestler. But this rivalry is not over. I do see individuals like Drew McIntyre, AJ Styles, Edge once again challenging a certain Roman Reigns, because he's now a double champion, who holds the championship for both the brands. So you might see more contenders come up. How will the WWE work this out? Well, it's on them, but it won't be far when the likes of Edge, AJ Styles, Drew McIntyre, Sheamus, who have fought and defeated Roman Reigns before, they might see themselves as potential candidates to challenge Roman Reigns as far as the championships are concerned, because this was a championship unification match, which means he holds both the titles. So you might see wrestlers from both the brands challenge him once they have completed or done with their on-screen singles rivalry. Another match which was strange to say the least was between Sami Zayn and Johnny Knoxville. I was kind of befuddled with the way this particular match was put up or booked. I didn't understand the logic of having such a match, but then sometimes you need a comic relief in such situations after too many serious matches, after seeing too many complete wrestlers compete. This was always going to be in that realm of comic relief or a bit of humor. That's exactly what happened. It was anything goes and using all kinds of instruments, all kinds of things at their disposal, which I will not tell right now, but if you go and have a look at this particular match, you will be thinking, what was that? But maybe it was all about having some fun at the expense of Sami Zayn. Their three-match rivalry which went on for a month as both were invading each other's zone or space. Johnny Knoxville, who's known for his stunts, challenges Sami Zayn at the Royal Rumble. The rivalry begins at Royal Rumble. Then they keep interfering with each other in their regular programming. It boils down to this match. And Johnny Knoxville was better prepared. He had his crew prepared for the way he wanted to go on with this match, and that is exactly what happened. So for me, it was a strange rivalry. But sometimes such strange rivalries also work when there is no option left to add some comic and humor. The Pat McAfee Austin Theory match was interesting. Pat McAfee, a former NFL player turned commentator, was given a chance by Vince McMahon to compete at Wrestle-mania. So it was unknown who his rival would be. Austin Theory turns up, and Austin Theory's elevation, or as has been said millions of times, that he is the protege or the personal hand-picked protege of McMahon, reminded me of how they elevated the likes of Randy Orton. Randy Orton was in his early days as a wrestler in his mid-20s, as well as John Cena. It did remind me of that particular story. So maybe you might see Austin Theory get into a championship contention. But here, once again, it was a situation of crossover. Because Pat McAfee is not a regular wrestler, but he may have trained in this particular profession, but there's a difference when you do it every day and when you do it once in 1 year. But still, he impressed with his moves, with all the skills that he showed on the ring. Once he went on to defeat Austin Theory, what happened? Mr. McMahon came into the ring and challenged him to a match. Was it impromptu? Was it planned? We'll never be able to know. But Vince McMahon came onto the ring and challenged him, and well, when the chairperson of the company is there, and if they are using some methods which would call for the referee, which would make the referee call for a disqualification. That cannot happen when the guy who pays you the paycheck is in the ring. So Austin Theory tried all methods, legal or illegal, and Pat McAfee was down by McMahon. But then what happens? Stone Cold Steve Austin turns up from nowhere. And we know what kind of rivalry does Stone Cold Steve Austin and McMahon have. They have been having an on and off rivalry. He comes in, he gets his beer, he takes a sip with McMahon, and then what does he do? As he does often, runs him. Invites Pat McAfee to have a drink with him, and once he does that, he stuns him again. That's typical Stone Cold Steve Austin. I've watched old videos, I've watched a live video, some things don't change, and that's the beauty. And of course, the entire arena went crazy when Stone Cold Steve Austin came into the ring for a second night in a row. But whether McMahon's expression, which has been the same whenever Stone Cold Steve Austin has made his way to the ring, was an expression to watch. Whether it was planned, impromptu, kayfabe, we will never know. Another interesting match was the one between Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes, a former AEW roster, part of the AEW roster, and one of the founders. Once his multi-year contract ended there was a rumor that Seth Rollins would be facing Cody Rhodes. I read a numerous articles, but it didn't seem like as if this would happen. Seth Rollins was almost deprived of an opportunity to compete at this event. Was told by McMahon that you will compete, but your wrestler will be revealed a minute before the match happens. And Cody Rhodes' return, if one can say that, to an in-ring return. I wouldn't exactly call it an in-ring return because he had been competing in the AEW ring. But if we have to look at these two as separate, and maybe he returned to the WWE after a while. Here it became a question of emotional return, and maybe Cody Rhodes announced himself as a championship contender. So you have multiple championship contenders for Roman Reigns. Cody Rhodes, Drew McIntyre, Edge, AJ Styles, and other wrestlers. So Roman Reigns has his hands full of future contenders, and let's see how many have seen him compete. They know the way he works. Paul Heyman and the Usos will always be a factor. And then the typical story of the low blow when the referee's back is turned and then using the championship title to knock out the opponent and then use his guillotine move to make sure that the opponent never wakes up again and winning by submission. So it will be an interesting situation as to who all challenge Roman Reigns for a title. Cody Rhodes has announced his intention. Will that happen? That remains to be seen. Another one which was interesting at the same time, which was baffling, was the one between Bobby Lashley and Omos. It was as if they were trying to have an emotional throwback to the one where they had Andre the Giant take on Hulk Hogan. They were trying to create that atmosphere. It never became that kind of a promotion that it was slow. You had two 7-feet individuals, one of them at 260 pounds, the other at 400 pounds, and somehow Bobby Lashley went on to defeat Omos via pinfall. But what happens next? Omos teams up with Bobby Lashley, former hype person, MVP, and together they give him the backstabbing. It's not surprising that MVP turned his back. This is what happens in this business. You may have been associated with a certain wrestler, but there are times when that wrestler disparages you and you look for an opportunity to take a stab at him, and almost at 7 feet did exactly that. Now, how will this rivalry team up? It's not clear to me at this time. I also see Bobby Lashley as a championship contender. So 7-8 potential contenders for Roman Reigns, and that's one aspect of winning both the titles. You will have at least 7-8 individuals combined from both the brands challenge you. I'm looking forward to as to how that entire narrative plays. How many will actually challenge him? How will the WWE management work out with the likes of Lashley, Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, Cody Rhodes, Edge, AJ Styles? Are they going to challenge him again? It's a possibility, but we will never know what do they have in mind. So this ends episode number 505 on the 8th of April 2022. Stay tuned for the next episode on the 11th of April 2022.